A new video game coming to you courtesy of Lucasfilm Games. Well, it wants you to know that the bad guys are bad. And it's kind of sad to watch these kinds of disclaimers be viewed as necessary. But we're here to tell you that while Lucasfilm and Indy may be telling you which guys are the bad guys that you should never be, well, folks, there might be something philosophical that undergirds all of this. Something sinister is lurking where they are telling you, don't be this, while they are definitely that. Hello, folks. Welcome back. We are happy to have you here on the Pro Channel. What a joy to be joined with you. We take it seriously every single time we get the opportunity to spend time with you. Today, we're talking about a brand new Indiana Jones game that is coming out. And folks, they are ready to shout to you with all caps, do not be like the bad guys in our game. There's just one problem. It seems like in their refrain, they might be claiming that the bad guys in their game are similar to, well, a huge portion of society who definitely would not self-identify with those they're claiming. Is it convoluted? Is it weird? Well, perhaps, folks, that's what we call the tease. Sit back. We'll explain in full right now. Speaking of some stuff that could get into the political, but we're careful not to, folks, take a look at this article out of Bounding into Comics. This one it's just about unbelievable, except that we've been through so much unbelievable that, well, we're starting to believe it. Spencer McCooley, friend of the channel, is the author here. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle to feature disclaimer clarifying that developer Machine Games' decision to use Yahtzees as enemies should not be in any way construed to condone, glorify, or endorse their ideology. In other words, get ready for a future where in Halo, we're giving clarification that the developers do not believe that the Covenant should wipe out all of human existence. For most people, it's understood that when a creator chooses to depict something evil in a piece of fiction, especially when that something is also portrayed in universe as explicitly bad, said creator is not endorsing a given behavior or ideology, but rather using it for narrative purposes, often to contrast the moral differences between a protagonist and their opposition. However, the same apparently does not ring true for the video game industry's modern audience, as like many games before it, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle will feature a very performative disclaimer assuring players that despite developer Machine Games' decision to pit the iconic archaeologist against the historical Yahtzee regime, the studio themselves does not endorse it in any way, shape, or form. The existence of said disclaimer was first unearthed courtesy of Video Game Chronicles' Jordan Midler, who came across Machine Games' message during his recent playthrough of the game, as conducted during a recent Machine Games press day. According to Midler, despite the game itself tasking players with physically fighting the many Yahtzees that Indy may come across in his adventure, as well as including a game mechanic that allows for the player to physically burn various Yahtzee-related propaganda posters, upon booting up the Great Circle, players are met with an assurance from Machine Games that Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is a fictional story, inspired by historical events and characters. Names, characters, organizations, locations, and events are either imaginary or depicted in a fictionalized manner not intended to disrespect any historical or cultural beliefs. It goes on and continues on to talk about the disclaimer. Chado, I want to go to you. How long until we have this on every Indiana Jones movie, if you try to stream it, wherever it might be streamed? How long until every movie that features the bad guys that we're talking about has a disclaimer telling you that you shouldn't be one of those bad guys, which I would have thought was now just part of the mainstream understanding that you don't want to be the bad guys?
Well, that's an interesting topic. I think we've got a couple of, off the top of my head, I think we've got a couple of things going on here. Number one is the march of time and how historical events are being forgotten. Not just the event itself, but what happened during that time. And the other part that's maybe even more difficult is how it's been transformed into now a simple insult.
Right. It's the conflation that worries me, Chado, because when they say we don't encourage, we don't support Yahtzees, the other thing that they're probably doing is saying, oh, by the way, a vast number of Yahtzees still exist. They just believe this other thing that's not the same as the historic, and we conflate the two and can't see a difference.
Well, again, it's the problem is they've forgotten what it was, and if they knew what it was, there wouldn't be any disclaimer.
Right.
The farther we're getting away we're already seeing the evidence of this. A certain individual running for office, I can't recall his name, has recently been called a Yahtzee.
Probably not a very famous person at all.
No. And so not only are we forgetting our history, we're devaluing the horrific nature of those words. Now, words are being destroyed on a regular basis these days. There's lots of vocabulary that has practically become meaningless, especially with its excessive uses. So, my biggest concern, and this all comes from being a comedian, is that one of the things that makes comedy work and why it's working less now is that we have less shared touch points. We have fewer things about family that we can discuss. We have got fewer historical things we can discuss. We don't know what's happening on either side of the country. So, a comment about Cleveland is going to is not going to be relevant to anybody in Arizona or something. I mean, we are
and Santa Fe have never been farther apart.
So yeah, we're being pushed apart on so many levels, and that makes comedy, my love, even more difficult, because comedy is best when it's ethnocentric and we all share the same knowledge.
Shadow, when you say touch points, you're referring to neutral ground, right? You're talking about places where we can have common understanding and everybody's on the same page. That's been eradicated by the metastasized politics of our era.
Correct. And so to me, I view your question in that totality.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's go to Steve now, because I can clearly see, Steve, that you are a man that could be defined as learned, a learned individual, just by your demeanor, sir, just by your aura that you're presenting. Steve, share with us your thoughts on the idea that now we're putting disclaimers on video games that bad guys are bad.
Well, I mean, think about all the stuff that they're already putting disclaimers on. There's nothing unique about putting the disclaimers on.
Steve, after what we found out from Sweet Baby, maybe there needs to be a disclaimer for the Mario games that says Bowser is not sexy.
Well, I'm just trying to wrap my mind around how to convey what I'm thinking. But the idea is that kind of what Paul was saying, there's no shared values and things that we can make fun of. We have castigated each other on political sides and all that kind of stuff. So when it comes to identifying that bad guys are bad, now the question is, who's the arbiter of that truth? Like, what's going to be the one that defines what the bad guy is? Right? Because we've shifted away from the language and the understanding of antagonist and protagonist to good guy and bad guy. And good guy and bad guy is who lines up with me most ideologically. And so if you see the good guy thriving and all that kind of stuff, I think that there's that idea of like, okay, so I'm going to assume that if this is the good guy, they align with me. And I don't think we could get away these days with, like, how do I word this? I'm going to go with probably the most, what's the word? Provocative example I could think of. Like, think of if we were to make like a movie about Hitler and you tried to make it a movie from his perspective, whether it's a comedy or not, like a drama even, I don't think anyone could seriously even try to endeavor making that because it would actually shed light on some of the values of today and people would feel attacked on both sides. Does that make sense?
There's a couple of things I want to throw in here. One is Jojo Rabbit was almost that, but it was obviously a lampoon of the entire idea. I'm going to take you all back to 1984, and exactly. If I could, it's after midnight, and something evil's lurking in the dark. I want to remind everybody of the moment at the start of the Thriller video where he says, "Due to my strong personal convictions, I wish to stress that this film in no way endorses a belief in the occult." Nobody gave Michael Jackson guff for that. But looking back, I kind of appreciate that he did it because of how we all now view Hollywood and how weird they've gotten about everything.
But on the flip side, we saw Tom Cruise get praised when he said, thanks for showing up to my movie at the beginning of Top Gun, and that stood out to everybody. Kind of
right, but he didn't start that movie with, I want to make it clear that I think it's wrong to blow people up with giant military industrial weapons. Like
and
kind of baked
the bigger
in.
issue is that we've run out of realistic bad guys they're willing to put into movies and games. Could you imagine the progressives their brains would explode if the Iranian Guard were depicted as the bad guys in anything right now?
Yeah,
that's a great point.
Well, this is a game that's coming out from modern Lucasfilm, and modern Lucasfilm just did an entire show where the Sith were the good guys. So maybe they do have to clarify who they think the bad guys are right now.
That's a fair point.
And that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. We are done for now, but don't worry. Do not fret. Not yet, for more content is still coming your way 4 times a day right here on the Pro Channel. What a joy it has been to share our time with you. We hope you feel the same. Adding value to your every single day is our job here, and we take it very seriously. Folks, the only thing we ask in return is that you consider clicking that like button. Share, subscribe, click it. Stick it to those algorithms. It's the notification bell. And drop a comment right on down below. And folks, if you'd like to subscribe to our partner YouTube channels, That Park Place, That Pod Place, That Game Place, and some of those radio stations like Vacation Radio, well, we certainly would appreciate it. Until the next time we have the honor of spending time and being invited into your day, folks, we go on our way saying this: keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun.